It's October, and well, everyone's talking about ghosts and monsters. We're diving into something even scarier, because this stuff is every day. This is everyday real stuff that happens that you don't see. It's not just the preservatives you should be scared of or any of the food stuff. It's what's behind the labels, behind the screens, and right in front of your face, hidden in plain sight. We are talking about multiple topics today. I'm Sue, I'm your host, and let's get on with it. So let's talk about what I call media mirror tools, where all the news outlets are fed into computers to get the true, actual news. These are platforms like Ground News, All Sides, and a few newer ones, and they don't tell you what to believe, but they do hold up the mirror and say, here's what everyone's saying. Now figure it out. They pull from the left and the right and the center and everything in between. They're not perfect, but they're trying to give the audience some raw material to work with instead of feeding them a pre-chewed narrative. The upside, they do reveal how stories are shaped by bias stuff. You get to see how the same headline is twisted, or should we say sanitized, depending on who's talking, right? They help break the spell of tribal media bubbles, if you let them. The downside, some of them still lean without admitting it. Others just dump all perspectives in front of you and walk away, even if one of those perspectives is totally unhinged. There's also the issue of the algorithmic sorting, what you're shown, and might still favor your past leanings. So even balance tools can turn into echo chambers if you're not really paying attention. Here's a real problem. Every political party wants your loyalty. They want you to think their way, vote their way, and speak their language. It's not about truth, it's about control. And the second you question it, you're treated like you've picked a side, even if all you're doing is thinking for yourself. So it doesn't end with politics. I mean, the platforms, the companies, the institutions, they've all burned bridges with the public. We don't know anymore who's pulling the strings behind the scenes. Think about it. Are they really neutral, or are they just hiding the influence? Are they trying to inform us or trying to shape us? That's the state we're in now, you know? Truth has become like a territory that everyone wants to claim, but no one wants to earn. So here we sit, not just confused, but suspicious. And believe me, we're suspicious, tired, and constantly asking, who do we even trust anymore? To really understand how media got this way, you've got to go back to something called the Fairness Doctrine. It was actually a policy from the Federal Communications Commission. It was put into place back in the late 1940s that required broadcasters to present both sides of controversial issues. If you had a platform, you had to give space to opposing views. It didn't matter if you leaned left or right, you had to make room for balance. But in '87, during the Reagan administration, the Fairness Doctrine was repealed. And once that happened, all bets were off. Yeah. Networks and stations were no longer required to show multiple perspectives. They could lean as far in one direction as they wanted, and they did. Yes, they did. That is when you saw the rise of hyper-partisan media, 24-hour news cycles with an agenda, and cable networks that turned politics into entertainment. Yep. And we've been paying for it ever since. Now, media outlets don't even pretend to offer balance. They curate your reality. They tell you what matters, how to think about it, and what to feel. And if you only watch one side long enough, you'll start believing it's the only side. So here we are with no fairness doctrine, no trust, and no real boundaries. Just loud voices, louder headlines, and a public that's being pulled apart by carefully packaged outrage. So now we're going to switch up the story here. We're going to talk about something totally different. Let's talk about Silicon Valley. It's the hub of the tech giants like Apple, Google, Meta, and the rest of them. They're all there in that area of California. And these companies are shaping the digital world we live in, pumping out the devices, the platforms, and the algorithms that most people can't go 5 minutes without checking. No. Here's a twist. The people who create this stuff don't even want their own kids using it. Did you know that? Many of the elite in Silicon Valley send their children to Waldorf schools, where screens are limited or banned entirely. The focus there is on creativity, human interaction, and critical thinking, not coding, not tablets, not social media. Some tech execs go even further. There are reports of nannies even being required to sign contracts. Yes, literally legal documents stating they won't even pull out a smartphone in front of their kids.
Oh,
no! Not to text, not to scroll, not even to take a picture, because they know exactly what this tech does. They know how addictive it is. They know how it hijacks attention, rewires brains, and replaces real interaction with artificial dopamine hits, guys. So while the rest of the world is raising kids on screens, fast content, and filtered reality, the tech elite are doing the opposite. They're protecting their children from the very thing they're selling to yours. That has to make you really stop and wonder, doesn't it? Here's another truth. Most people don't want to see the same people who dominate tech and media rarely trust their own creations enough to let them near their children. What about your children, guys? Really, think about it. They build the algorithms, the platforms, the attention traps, and the news systems, and they quietly make sure their own lives are insulated from it. Waldorf schools, nanny contracts, no phone zones in their homes. These are safety nets of hypocrisy because they know exactly what the machinery does. They know how addiction is engineered. They know how narratives are spun and controlled. Now, you layer on top of that the fact that the media ownership is collapsing into fewer hands. In America, a handful of conglomerates now control most major outlets, so what looks like choice is often just illusion. That means the architecture of truth is being shaped by a tiny group, some of whom are also building the platforms you use and also setting the narratives that you see. So, when one of these media mirror tools steps forward and says, hey, here's what's out there from all sides, you decide, and you have to ask, who built the mirror? Who owns the walls? And who gets to clean off the fingerprints? Think about it. And while we're at it, here's another truth. The same people who dominate tech and media also enjoy healthcare most people can't even imagine. And they don't want you to have it. Okay? Let's start with this. The wealthy don't use health insurance like the rest of us. Many corporations run by the elite create self-funded health plans. That means the company, not a third-party insurer, pays the medical bills directly. And when you control the plan, you control the rules. These plans are exempt from state insurance regulations, which means they can customize coverage, skirt oversight, and quietly build a tiered system. One for executives, one for everybody else. You ever hear about executive health plans? Probably not, right? Probably haven't because they're buried in fine print or locked behind corporate walls. Some companies offer separate off-the-books health packages just for their top executives. These aren't HMO plans. These are direct access to elite clinics, experimental treatments, and priority scheduling most people will never see. One company gave its CEO access to a private diagnostic clinic in Switzerland, while its lower-tier workers were stuck in the network waiting 6 weeks for a basic MRI. Sound familiar? Same company, two worlds, and the board called it justified compensation. So no, it's not just about money that they can pay. It's about systems they control and how they bend the rules for themselves while locking down access for everyone else. They tell the public what's affordable, what's covered, and what's good enough, all while quietly living in a completely different healthcare reality. So here's another one, and this one I was thinking of because of my son when he was in school, and he brought things home, and I was like, whoa, some information. So we're going to step back in time, but this is what's going on now. So now let's talk about food. You walk through the grocery store thinking labels mean something natural, no artificial ingredients, organic, clean. But here's what they don't tell you. The government has a defect tolerance level. That means your food can legally contain insect fragments, rodent hairs, maggots, mold, mealworms, fly eggs, you name it, as long as it doesn't cross the set limit. 100 grams of chocolate, my favorite, that's allowed to have up to 60 insect parts. A quarter cup of cornmeal can have 50 insect fragments and whole bugs. Tomato juice, you're allowed fly eggs and maggots. Canned mushrooms can have mold and mites. These are facts, okay? They are printed in black and white in FDA documents most people will never read. And no, they don't have to list that on the label. So, while they regulate how many milligrams of a vitamin that we are allowed in a supplement, they say nothing about the legs, wings, or eggs tucked into your pantry. The elite don't eat from these shelves. They eat imported, pre-tested, farm-to-table perfection. Meanwhile, they normalize things for the rest of us, and they would never serve that at their own table. It's not about bugs. It's about truth, guys. About how they manage the perception of safety and quality while hiding the real standards behind paperwork that nobody questions. They say the labels tell the whole story, but when it comes to what you're eating, again, we're lied to. So all in all, with all of these that we've talked about and discussed, they'll say it's safe. They'll say everything's always normal. But the scariest part isn't what they're telling us. It's what they're not.